What's up, you amateurs? Welcome to the first episode of Europa Lookout, the show that dives deep into the HCS European scene. Since this is the first episode, let me explain a little bit more about the show. This is my take on The Flank. If you don't know what The Flank is, it's a Call of Duty show hosted by Zuma, Benjay Asim, Aches, and Parasite, where they talk about the CDL matches, rosters, and Call of Duty in general. So I wanted to do the same thing for the European Halo scene, trying to keep the scene alive. You know, since the European scene is almost dead, and I'm being generous. However, the main goal is to keep track of the amateur teams, know who's playing since I find it a little bit hard nowadays. I also want to keep track of stats, but I think Halo Data Hive is not at full force since the update to the Halo API, so stats will be the bare minimum. We'll see what I can do in the future. So let's get started, boys, because we have a lot to talk about. So first things first, let me put you up to speed if you haven't paid attention to the scene. First, let's discuss HCS Settings for Year 2. The new HCS Settings include two brand new maps, a remake of The Pit and Argyle. And the community consensus is that they both suck. They suck mostly because we are playing Ranked Fiesta. I mean, the sheer amount of weapons on the maps has forced an early update. Surprising, I know. They removed weapons and fusion coils, and tweaked timings for the OS and power weapons. The addition of these two maps means that Catalyst and Bazaar are gone. Other important future updates that you might have missed include the ammo rack update. This means that the rack won't spawn a weapon until it has despawned. Mangler and Sword will be gone. Finally, we waited like a year for this. And Pulse Carbine as well. Commando, Frags, Spikes, Disruptor, Plasma Pistol, and Drop Weapon will be nerfed. Audio footsteps will also be receiving an update. They say, we adjusting footstep audio to better suit competitive play. Enemies are now harder to hear at distance and easier to hear when very close. And we improved accuracy of enemy location based on footstep audio when enemies are above, below, or behind you. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And finally, ammo for Shotgun, Heatwave, Stalker, and Shock Rifle will be reduced. Finally, in the future, we'll get the Bandit Rifle and the Shroud Screen. Now let's talk about the roadmap. Oh boy. Okay, so where to start? Safe to say that we're all disappointed. We know that Valencia wasn't perfect, even though I quite enjoyed it. But damn, not having a LAN event this year really sucks. This is bad, real bad for Halo. It seems that they're putting down the last nails on the coffin. I wanted to go to Seattle for Worlds because I had a feeling that this would be the last year of HCS. I did not expect, however, that we wouldn't have an event in Europe. What's the point in playing? We jump on a Fiesta-like game to play with cheaters. The game has awful netcode and servers, and now we can't even wait for a LAN? We have two European partner teams, and yet no LAN event. Was this because of the lack engagement of Valencia? To be fair, we had like 0 Spanish teams there, and I mean like, 4 teams on Nations Cup? I mean, I understand that when planning for the HCS 2022, in 2021, COVID restrictions were still a thing, and maybe Valencia was the best and safest option to hold an event, but it's nowhere near the ideal place to hold a Halo event. The two biggest fan bases are in France and the UK, so naturally the attendance wouldn't be perfect. We had 2 London events in H5 in 2017 and 2018, held by Gfinity. Is it due to partnerships, DreamHack in ESL? You guys don't host an event without your partners? Makes sense. So why not in Valencia again? Shit, man, I would prefer Valencia again than no event at all. And I know I'm not the only one. DreamHack didn't want to spend money for hosting Halo tournament. I mean, can you blame them? I don't know, guys. The fact is that Halo European community is down bad. Not only us, but the rest of the world. Halo is and always be NA first. It makes sense. But you can't grow and foster a community outside NA if you don't invest in it. Last year, when they removed the crowdfunding for Worlds, I knew that something bad was happening. But I had hope for one event. It is what it is. HCS is probably losing money for 343, and with everything happened in 343, with the layoffs, restructuring of management, moving to Unity or Unreal Engine, I don't know. There's a lot of shit that is wrong with 343. Believe me, this year will determine the future of Halo. And as of right now, it doesn't look good. Let's talk about some of the roster moves that happened during the off-season. Ascent has quit Halo and dropped their entire roster, which was Sika, Legend, Snipe Drone, and Respectful. Blackhand is no longer in Halo as well. Their roster was Looney, Abby, Glory GG, and Mista, and Vexed Gaming after losing against my boys Omojo Gaming in a big upset. Their roster was Looney, Squashy, Warlord, and Haulers. These changes caused some Rostermania in Europe, and now we have these teams. Navi, Jimbo, Z-Mighties, Snakey, and Snipe Drone dropped Kimbo, and their coach is Wonderboy. Quadrant, Legend, Sika, SLG, Chick, they dropped Nurix and WD Chad. Coach EU Tyler, JLINGZ, Morgu, Septic, Burton, and Quadios, they dropped Flux, and their coach is Baxter. And now looking at the other top teams that haven't made changes since, we have Wreckers, Respectful from Ascend, Mose, Flux from JLINGZ, Glory GGs from Blackhand. Then we have Jump Out, which is Lunny, previously from Blackhand, Kimbo, previously from Navi, Riots, and Haulers from Vexed. Flying Dutchman, Clonely, Lumizer, aka Sair, Milzy, and Mista from Blackhand, and Cat Smile, my boy Dan Marine, Subatomic, Outcast, and Warlord, previously from Vexed. As we can see, the top teams are packed with quality rosters, and I'm excited to see what these teams can do in the next couple of online tournaments. Now, because we had a tournament on the 14th, Tuesday, there was a lot of changes in the rest of the amateur teams, so I'm not going to be covering them. Instead, we're going to look at some games from the 12th and 14th, starting with Sunday. I was actually surprised by the number of teams that showed up. We had 37 teams, while I was expecting only 20, maybe 25. I guess there's some hope for UALO after all. The first match we're looking is Trashcan Esports, Jestas, BCD, Buffed, and Hazer versus Bucky Boys, Shay, aka Legend 6, Coxarola, Buttons, and Ibaz, which went to Game 3. Honestly, I rate Trashcan higher than Bucky Boys. You would expect a quick 2-0. However, Bucky Boys managed to push to a Game 3, which I think is very, very tippable. So, congrats, boys. Both teams managed to place top 24. Trashcan Esports ended up being eliminated against Too Talented, Cheeky Lemon, James Z, Moss FPS, and Richard RX in a 2-0 fashion, while Bucky Boys lost against Redemption Gang, Evolution, Excuse My Host, Eastwood, and Crucial, also 2-0. My team also lost to these two teams, funnily enough. Myself, Rainwater, Velshu, and Animal lost against Redemption Gang in the winner's bracket and lost against Too Talented in the losers. We were absolutely railed by Redemption Gang and felt that we threw Game 1 against Too Talented and we weren't able to push a Game 3 on them. Ended up placing top 32. Another potential breakdown was UHL All-Stars, Brad MQ, Patotally, Nicky Boy, and Kazi, taking a Game 3 against Chasseur, which by the way means shoe in French. Nice one, guys. Destroy, Acro, Azamat, and Menzo. Considering that UHL All-Stars placed top 32 and Chasseur placed top 16, this match came to a Game 3 Stronghold Streets where Chasseur closed it out. UHL ended up being eliminated against Fish 123, Bixie, Hustful, Snailit, and Jaw, while Chasseur lost against Across the Pond, U Assault, Zove, Light Axel, and Chaos Z. I'm curious if Chasseur will be sticking together, but I think they will. Even though I reckon Destroy is probably their best player, I don't know. You guys tell me. Looking at WashedBite, previously FrostBite Esports, I see the pun. Good one. Which consists of Crossman, Systematic, Zayok, and Marvies. They end up losing against Cat Smile Gaming, my boy Dan Marine, Subatomic, Outcast, and Warlord in winner's bracket 2-1. This was probably a great match. These guys placed top 12 on Valencia, surprising some other teams, but against the likes of the veteran Warlord, formerly on Vexed, which placed top 8 at the same event, and the rest of the talent squad, the Finns couldn't close it out in Game 3. It's hard to tell which team would have won that one, but it's Cat Smile Gaming that takes the dub. However, the breakdown comes later in the losers bracket when the Finns lost 2-1 against HCS Texas, Percussion, or as I like to call him Percussion, Ranakin, Rudy, and Flubzo. This was definitely a breakdown. The WashedBite should have won this in 2-0 fashion, clean sweep. I don't know if it was the pink cheese or playing with, not playing for a while. I know Marvies was on a break for a few months. I don't know, but huge prop to HCS Texas for taking down the WashedBite powerhouse. Now, to close out Sunday 12th, we are looking at the rest of the bracket for top 8. In winners round 4, we got Quadrant beating Cat Smile Gaming 2-0, which was expected. JLINGZ losing to Jump Out Gang, I think this was probably an upset. Navi beating The Last Dance 2-0, again, expected. And Flying Dutchman closing it out in Game 3 against Wreckers. These two teams will be battling out through the season, no doubt. And in winners round 4, Quadrant won against Jump Out 2-0 and Navi against Flying Dutchman 2-0 as well. Now this is where it gets interesting. Quadrant lost in winners finals 3-2 against Navi, causing a huge upset against the Frenchman. And for the first time, Navi make it to the grand finals through winners, I think. Looking at losers round 7 for top 6, The Last Dance lost against Wreckers and Cat Smile Gaming lost against JLINGZ. Both results were expected, but this is where the fun begins. Jump Out lost against Wreckers in losers round 8, 2-0, and Flying Dutchman lost 2-0 against JLINGZ. Why is this interesting? Because the losers of the lower bracket, round 8, were the winners in upper bracket round 7. There was a switch between matches and both lower bracket teams won. Look at this example. The crazy thing as well is that in the upper bracket it went to game 3, whilst in the lower bracket was a clean 2-0. And then Wreckers won 3-1 against JLINGZ. I don't know about you guys, but how can we rate these teams? Let me show you the logic. Since Wreckers beat Jump Out and JLINGZ lost against Jump Out, then Wreckers would beat JLINGZ. However, because Wreckers lost against Flying Dutchman and JLINGZ beat Flying Dutchman, doesn't that mean that JLINGZ would beat Wreckers? Do you now see how crazy this is? You'd expect that Wreckers against JLINGZ would go to the distance, but it was a clean 3-1 for Wreckers. This is insane. It just goes to show that the top 6 is stacked and we're in for a treat in this season. And finally, the losers final, Quadrant won 3-0 against Wreckers and went in hot against Navi, beating them into 2 best of 5s, resetting the bracket and winning 3-1 and 3-1. Now looking at Tuesday, Valentine's Day, Cheaper Cheeps, Nilk, Sam Shots, my boy Sean aka JLINGZ, and the Madman Jayo beat Flamboyant, Sanro, Ask Mjolnir, and Richard RX in winners round 1. Flamboyant changed their roster going in on Tuesday, replacing Left Eye and level 50 for Mjolnir and Richard. Not only made them lose winners round 1, but also placing top 33, whereas on Sunday they placed top 12. This roster move might have to do with the tourney being held on Tuesday, so they really got punished. But huge props to the boys on Cheaper Chips. They ended up placing top 12, losing against JLINGZ, which was kinda unlucky. I think they could have beaten some other teams. Cat Smile Gaming losing against Trashcan Esports in winners round 2, 2-1. However, Trashcan Esports made some roster changes going in on Tuesday. Their roster only maintained Jestaz, and they picked up the Warrior Neil, which was playing on The Last Dance on Sunday, Crucial, and Excuse My Host. But I still reckon this was an upset. In the end, both teams placed top 12. Cat Smile lost against the Wafflers, Simply Gambit, Blizz, Sticka, and Left Eye, and Trashcan lost against Infurious, McArbitor, Hybrid, Marcus, and Evolution. Looking at the top 8, once again, all teams came into play and some upsets ended up happening. The biggest upset was probably JLINGZ losing against Flying Dutchman 2-0 in the winners bracket, which was a team they had beat for top 4 on Sunday. And then they ended up losing once again to Wreckers 2-1, pushed them to a map 3 but weren't able to close it out. This means that JLINGZ didn't qualify for Charlotte. Nevertheless, it seems that we'll see the boys going anyway. JLINGZ are showing how awesome they are. That is really cool to see. Hopefully these guys can get to a pools. On the other hand, Wreckers, what a performance. In my opinion, Glory GG's is their best player. This guy is insane. According to Buff Stats, Glory had the best KD with a 1.13 and most average damage in the team, even though every member put in the numbers. I'm excited to see this team on LAN and what the future holds for them. In the upper bracket, they beat Jump Out 2-1 and pushed Navi to a game 3. In the lower bracket, they took care of business by beating JLINGZ once again, this time around 2-1, beating Flying Dutchman in a grueler game 5, 3-2, and in the end, it seems that they ran out of gas for the losers final against Navi and end up losing 3-0, even though they took a map off of them previously. And finally, Navi lost 3-1 against Quadrant in the winners upper bracket, but nevertheless, they went through them in the grand finals by winning the first best of 5 3-1 and the reset 3-0. However, Quadrant wasn't playing the optimal setup. I think Legend had a power outage or something, and coach EU Tyler had to pick him up to play the rest of the series. So I would say don't get too focused on this result because it might be biased. But a lot of credit to Navi, they stayed composed and won their first Europe tournament of the season. So congratulations to them. Finally, let's talk about Charlotte. We'll be having 5 Europe teams going to NA. Navi, Jimbo, Snakey, Snipedorn, and Z-Mighties on Pool A, Quadrant, Sika, Legend, SLG, Chick, and Pool B. Wreckers, Glory GGs, Respectful, Flux, and Moes. Flying Dutchman, Mista, Lumizor, Clonely, and Milzy. JLINGZ Esports, Morga, Burton, Quadios, and Septic. All of them in open bracket. I think Quadrant have a really nice chance to win their pool, but it's going to be hard for Na'Vi. And I have high hopes for Wreckers in the open bracket. I hope to see them in pools. Best of luck to the EU squads. We are rooting for you guys. So yeah guys, that's everything I got for you today in the first episode of Europa Lookout. I'm excited to bring you guys more episodes in the future. I apologize for the rough edit. It's my first time using DaVinci Resolve and the gameplay is not the best resolution. Hopefully for the next episode, the things will be better. I would also love some feedback. Please correct me if I said something wrong. There's a free agent list by Ollie J, the stats by Buff Stats. And make sure you follow Mr. T and Crumpets. His tables helped a lot. And also follow Europe Alo on Twitter and play the Project Stadium. They're the only support we're getting this year, so share your love towards them. Anyways guys, it's been fun. Subscribe for more videos, leave a like if you end up enjoying. And remember, good luck and have fun. Talk!